welcome to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. I'm Sarah, I'm the curator here.
I'm Austin, I'm one of our animal keepers here.
And today we're here to kind of update you guys on Artie, the Muskox rescue from the Alaska Animal Rescue, a TV show on NatGeoWild that's on Saturday nights at 9/8 Central, 5 p.m. Alaska time. If you remember from the show, I think it was the very first episode, we had baby Athena and Artemis, the Muskox calves. And as you can see, Artemis is not very little anymore. She's a big fluffy hairball muskox. And Austin's going to tell you a couple little fun facts about Artie.
So Artie right now is about 250 to 275 pounds. She has officially joined the herd. Some of her best friends include Guacamole and Beans, our 2-year-olds. And her little horns are starting to finally grow in. You can see right there. Maybe if she turns her head.
And then the other thing you might notice about Artemis right now as we get you zoomed in there is she's kind of a cyclops, a one-eyed muskox right now. And she's okay, she's doing really well. In the late fall, back in October, she sustained a really severe injury that required an eye removal surgery, which obviously took some big setbacks with getting her into the herd. Typically, between October and November, rescue bottle babies, we like to kind of put them in with the herd because she's a herd animal. She relies on her herd to, you know, just kind of feel comfortable and live her life. It's not really cool and fair for her to be by herself. She needs to have a herd. That's key. But unfortunately, with that injury, we had to keep her separate for a lot longer because we needed to make sure the injury healed really well. So if you saw earlier, like she still has some eyelashes going on, but the injury site has healed up really well. She does really well as a one-eyed muskox. Austin's been working with her all year. To get her on a halter so she's comfortable with us and establish and build those relationships, because with a bottle baby and raising animals with a bottle, you know, kind of they get a different attitude, they get a different mindset. And for here at the Wildlife Center, we're a sanctuary with a whole bunch of orphans from all different backgrounds. If you remember from the show, Artemis' background was her mom was attacked by a grizzly bear and she ran under an outpost building up on the north slope, and she got brought in that way. And so she never saw humans prior to that, and that's why she's here now. And so we need to make her life as comfortable with us as her caretakers as we possibly can, and that involves building relationship with her, having an establishment. So, you know, eventually she's going to need her hoofs trimmed, she's going to need vaccines eventually, she's going to need medications, and those things all happen is if you have a really nice relationship with the animal. So if it's comfortable for her, it's comfortable for us. It's basically it's a whole life training plan that we do here with a lot of our animals, especially these last couple of years. We've really developed it and worked it out. So Austin might demonstrate a couple of things with Artemis specifically that we've been working on, especially because she's now kind of a handicap with that one eye.
So one of the most important things we work on is just teaching her if we need space, we can go back up. She can back right up. Also, as Howie mentioned, we do like to be able to trim their hooves every once in a while as they need it. So we're working on voluntary hoof pickups. This whistle right here is called a bridge. It pretty much tells them that's exactly what I want you to do. If you've ever clicker trained your dog, it's the same thing, except when I have the whistle in my mouth, I have 2 hands, so I can work with her a little bit more. Can I have this? Good girl. And then, as Howie also mentioned, she is halter trained, so we can take her on walks for educational programs. Also enrichment, which is just something to vary up her life on a day-to-day basis. We can go take her, she can explore new places, she can go see other animals, and those other animals get enriched as well because they get to see her too.
We have a question coming in.
Yes.
The first is, how would their hooves stay trimmed in the wild?
So normally muskox are tundra wanderers, right? They're not, so we're in Portage, Alaska, so I'm going to do a little work with me here. So if this is the state of Alaska, it's a really big state. We are way down here. This is where we are right now in Portage, Alaska. Artemis was found way up here in Alaska, which is hundreds of miles, and that's where wild muskox are typically found. They're not really found along this part of the state, along the coastal region South Central. And so typically when they're up there on the tundra, they're walking on harder surfaces, and in the wintertime, the ice that they're walking on. So their hooves stay pretty much in check, and they don't really have to worry about it. But when they're here in a completely different environment, where they don't have those harder surfaces that they're constantly walking on and keeping the hooves in check there. I'm getting covered in kibute. We have to help them out and kind of trim their hooves, give them some nail trims every now and again. And another thing about muskox, what I just was talking about, is the kibute. Austin, we don't know if he's got a beard or if he's wearing kibute on his face. So anyway, if we get in close here, the big thing about muskox is that kibute. So this long stringy hair right here, this is the guard hair. So that's kind of like her raincoat. It just kind of it's for fashion. But then this stuff right here, this woolly, really soft. It's softer than cashmere. But it's warmer than sheep's wool. It's 8 times warmer than sheep's wool. That's what keeps them warm, and that's one of the big things about muskox. They can be in the middle of the tundra and 20 below, and the snow just sits on top of them because they're so well insulated with the hair. This is called this kibute, and it's pronounced kibute. It's spelled kind of funky because it's a Q word, but that's how you pronounce it. Sounds like we got another question.
Yeah, the next question is, how big do they get and how long do they live?
So muskox females tend to get around 500 to 600 pounds. Males can get up to 800 pounds. In human care, muskox can get into their late teens, potentially even their early 20s. Females do tend to live a little bit longer than males, especially intact bulls, just because when they do go into rut, it does take a lot out of them and that energy as well. So our current herd ranges in age from Artie, who has her anniversary next week, up into our old female ASIM, who is about 15 years old this year.
We have another question, it sounds like.
Have they ever been tamed enough to be milked like a yak?
Tame enough to milk like a yak. Well, interesting. So Alaska actually has, there's another facility, the Muskox farm. They are able to brush their muskox. I don't think they've ever milked their muskox. But everybody kind of works with their animals in different ways. Here at the Wildlife Center, we kind of let them do their own thing. For them, it's comfortable for them. They just kind of hang out. And again, the operant conditioning program that we work on here at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, we work on whole life training where we just need to be able to give them medical treatment if we need to. We do enrichment for them to stimulate their minds, give them something to do. Imagine kind of being in your bedroom your whole life. You need to have something to do, and that's our job as their caretakers. We need to make sure that they're enriched, their life is comfortable, and they're happy, and we do everything we can for them. That's the goal. And we have another question.
Yeah, did the herd accept her well?
Did the herd accept her well? I might let Austin speak to this one.
So muskox are very social animals, and they do have an established hierarchy. It was part of accepting a new muskox is just making sure they know where they are on the hierarchy. So there was a little bit of bullying the first day or two, which is normal, but she quickly became best friends with our 2 2-year-olds, and she's been fitting in with the herd ever since, and she's a great addition to them.
Some might say she's got a little boyfriend.
Yes.
But it looks like we got another question.
How long is the gestation period?
How long is the gestation period? So muskox, they go into the breed season just like every mammal. And anyway, the gestation period is about 7 months. I believe that's 250 to 270 days. And that's about how long it takes to have a little Artie hit the ground.
And people have some questions about their snacks.
So we give them a variety, or a different grain. One of them is specifically designed for muskox. It's this little one.
Yummy.
She's very, very impatient. And then we also mix it with some alfalfa pellets. And then just as a very special snack, whenever we do fun things for training, it's just reinforcement. It's not part of her diet every single day. She likes different cereal. So today is Honey Bunches of Oats. She also really enjoys Cheerios.
And some funny quirks about Artemis real quick, just because it's Austin. You'll notice Austin is wearing gloves. So first off, whenever we feed animals, we typically typically wear gloves just to keep the cooties away. But the other thing about Artemis in particular is she will call you out if you magically forget to wear your glove while you're just giving a branch. You're not even really coming into contact. She's a germaphobe, and she prefers everyone wears gloves, all the time, every time, or she will not accept your treat. Another question.
Yes, Howie, do y'all have an adopt an animal program?
Adopt an animal program. We do. The Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, again, we're a nonprofit. We rely heavily on donations and support from the public this year especially. And on our website, www.alaskawildlife.org, you can go online and you'll find animals. You'll find Artie on there, but you'll find all the other species that we have here at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center that are up for adoption. And unfortunately, you can't really take them home. These guys really love Alaska, and they're going to stay in Alaska. But when you adopt an animal at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, that support goes right into their care. It goes into their vet bills. It goes into their feed costs. So basically, when you adopt them, you're really taking care of them the same way. It's just we live in Alaska with them, so we're the person that kind of does the feeding for them. Another question, it sounds like.
Do muskox make any sounds?
Muskox sounds. They have multiple different sounds. I'm particularly fond of their baby sounds. When they get older, it's more of a gurgled underwater burping sound. Austin might try and demonstrate that one. But what I can do for you today is when they're a baby, it's like I don't know how, it's just a really intense whine, and it sounds like meh. And that was baby muskox for you right there.
A really cool thing about adults is they actually have very similar larynxes to a lion, so they're able to growl just as like a lion would.
And that's what happens a lot. Go ahead.
Are we open for visitors now?
Thankfully, we are open for visitors. We're open every day all week, every day of the week. There's only 7 days a week. And we're open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. We have a last entry at 5 p.m. and that's because we're a really widespread facility. So there's lots of room and a lot of animals to see. So you need about an hour to get through the facility, and that's why the last entry is at 5 p.m. and then by 6 p.m. we're going to encourage everybody time to go home for the night. And so yeah, is there another question?
Yes. When will she be full grown?
Females typically mature a little sooner than males. Full grown, I would expect her to be as big as she's going to be by the time she's 3. Males, it usually takes 4 to 5 years, and that's just because they have a lot more going on. They need to grow in their horn base and their boss, where females don't have that really big helmet on top of their head.
And will you say the name of the species again?
So this is a muskox. These again are tundra wanderers, and you typically don't find them this far south. Yeah, they're actually a lot of misconception about muskox is everyone thinks they're bison. When you come in and see them, they get confused for bison a lot, or a bovine of some sort, but they're actually more closely related to goats and sheep, particularly goats. Artemis is very involved with Austin's snacking right now, but she is definitely into climbing anything and everything, which is very goat-esque. I just made that up. So yeah, that's kind of a fun fact about muskox. Another question, it sounds like.
If you're behind them, will they kick like a horse?
Muskox typically, they have 4 legs, and what they'll kind of do with their back legs is they kind of just, like, especially when bugs are bugging them, or flies, or something like that, whizzing around their back end, they'll kind of like do like a little flare kick. It's a little silly looking, but it works for them apparently. They don't have a really long tail to bat everything, like some of the other animals do, like a bison does, right? They can totally hit their whole rump with their tail, but a muskox, they don't really do that, but they will kind of stomp at you with their front feet, but it's not like a really intense kick like a moose or something like that.
One more question. Are they found anywhere else or only in Alaska?
So they are found in Greenland and I believe Russia as well. So muskox were actually extinct in Alaska in the late 1800s. It wasn't until the early 1900s when 32 were brought over from Greenland onto Nunavik Island. And since then, their populations have flourished and their numbers are anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 right now.
And actually, one more that came in.
Okay.
And if you could talk about if her horns, if she will grow any.
So her horns, the question's about her horns and if she's going to grow any. She kind of has like this little funky hair loop, but you might be able to, Austin's looks like he's pointing it out there for you. There is a little nub right there. And when I said earlier about maturity, 2 to 3 years for females, that's about how long it takes them to really grow out their horns. Unfortunately, the rest of our herd's super far away, so we can't really show you our youngsters that they are in the 2-year-old stage where their horns kind of come directly out at you, like they're, I'm coming to get you. So eventually that's what her horns are going to look like, probably by the end of sometime next year. By her 3rd year though, we'll start to see that muskox curl and it comes down around her face. So it takes a little bit of time for that. Alright folks, so I think that's the update on Artemis, and that's about all the time we have right now. Thank you for joining Austin and I here at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. Again, we have a website, www.alaskawildlife.org, where you can come click on some of the updates for the Wildlife Center. You can find Artie on there under the adopted animal. Also, really big news is this Saturday in 2 days is our season finale for the Alaska Animal Rescue, featuring the Wildlife Center, the Sea Life Center, and the Raptor Center. Tune in at 9/8 Central or 5 p.m. Alaska time.